nobody was expecting me to be on this team. Honestly, we know what the views are of this organization from the outside. But I knew enough people in it to know that we could do something special and that we could potentially change some minds and some views. And
when Sydney Colson made the monumental decision to walk away from the Las Vegas Aces, the entire WNBA establishment wasn't just stunned, it was left completely reeling. She had just turned her back on a championship dynasty, on her public role as A'ja Wilson's best friend, and on the promise of guaranteed continued success. But what she has just revealed in her latest bombshell interview completely changes everything we thought we knew about her, about the Indiana Fever, and most importantly, about Caitlyn Clark, because this was never about rejecting anyone. This was about answering a profound calling. Sydney Colson saw something brewing in Indiana that nobody else did, and her unwavering faith in this young, hungry team is now poised to completely rewrite the Indiana Fever's entire future, and in the process to put the WNBA's entire old guard firmly in its place. This brings us to the ultimate question: do you stand with Sid and Caitlyn in this new revolution? If you do, then let us know down in the comments below.
Let's start first with just the special season you guys have had with the Indiana Fever this year. I think it can be summed up by your end of season Instagram post. Let's take a look at this post from you, Sid. And in the in the caption, you said, "Genuinely enjoyed this team and what we did on the court and in the showers." You're so silly. "I knew in the off season that God was placing me where I needed to be to grow and learn some necessary lessons. And that's exactly what happened."
So what exactly does a player with 2 championship rings on her fingers think about when she is presented with a chance to leave all of that guaranteed success behind? This past offseason, Sydney Colson was confronted with a choice that genuinely and completely surprised people from all around the WNBA. The Las Vegas Aces had offered her a clear and easy path to even more championships, a familiar and comfortable system, and the undeniable comfort of continuing to play alongside her best friend A'ja Wilson. It was, by any and every measure, the safe bet. But then the phone rang, and on the other end of the line was the Indiana Fever's front office. The team's general manager, Lynn Dunn, and their head coach, Stephanie White, were on the line, and they were presenting a completely different and far more challenging kind of opportunity entirely. This was not just another standard contract negotiation. This was a personal invitation to become a foundational part of something that was being built from the very ground up.
There's clearly so much love for your team. There's a huge free agency on the way. This roster may not ever look the same again. So for you, like, what made this team so special and one to remember in your career?
You know, in the off season, it was obviously like a tough decision for me. I've been with the Aces for so long, and we did some amazing things together as a team. And like I said in the post, I could just feel, God. When you could just feel like you need to get uncomfortable, or like you're being pushed in a direction, and because it makes you uncomfortable, kind of don't want to do it.
Sydney Colson would later describe this pivotal moment in her career as a profound and almost spiritual leap of faith. She has said that she truly felt as if she were being guided to a place where she needed to be, a place that was essential for her own personal growth, and a place where she could learn the necessary lessons. And this kind of decision actually aligns with a pattern that we are seeing more and more across all of professional sports. A pattern where established veteran players will sometimes seek out roles where their leadership can have a maximum and lasting cultural impact, rather than just simply chasing another championship ring on an already stacked and established roster. And yet, the immediate public narrative that formed around her decision was that this move was all about the money, or about a simple guarantee of more minutes on the court.
I think the older I've gotten, the stronger my faith has gotten. I run to the uncomfortable, honestly, because I know on the other side there's gonna be some lesson that I needed, and that was what happened this season.
But the Indiana Fever's front office had a very clear and a very deliberate strategy. They specifically targeted Sydney Colson early on in the free agency process, and they did so for her unique, infectious personality and for her proven ability to catalyze a young, developing team's growth. The general manager, Lynn Dunn, has since said that they wanted someone who could not only lead the team on the court, but who could also bring a lot of fun and levity to the team's locker room. They clearly recognized her immense value as a culture setter, a 2-time reigning champion who could instantly instill a winning mentality into a young and developing roster. So what was the real underlying reason that she ultimately picked up the phone and said yes to the Indiana Fever? Sydney Colson has since framed the entire decision as a matter of both a spiritual and a deeply personal necessity.
Nobody was expecting me to be on this team. Honestly, we know what the views are of this organization from the outside, but I knew enough people in it to know that we could do something special and that we could potentially change some minds and some views. And
for her, it was a deliberate step into a place of discomfort, a move that was guided by her own personal faith, not by a simple on-court basketball calculation. She saw it as a unique and powerful chance to change the entire negative narrative that had been surrounding the Indiana Fever organization for so long, and a chance to do something truly special. And this one single decision has now set the stage for a chain of events that is poised to completely and totally redefine not only her own career, but the entire identity of the Indiana Fever franchise. The news of Sydney Colson's surprising move to the city of Indiana sent a series of genuine and palpable shockwaves rippling through the entire league, because she was not just another run-of-the-mill free agent who was just switching teams. No, she was A'ja Wilson's best friend, and she was a core foundational part of the Las Vegas Aces' entire championship-winning culture, and her sudden and unexpected departure from Las Vegas has now immediately created a brand new and very compelling conflict, a conflict that pits her directly against the WNBA's entire old guard.
I mean, when you put yourself out there, you also put yourself out there to haters. So how do you handle that aspect of it?
Oh man, I used to just troll them back because like there's nothing that you can say about me that'll hurt my feelings. Like I literally do not know you, and some of the responses are bots. You know, for me to get my feelings hurt about people, I gotta respect you. I gotta value your opinion. A lot of things go into it.
And Sydney Colson's decision was immediately, and perhaps unfairly, interpreted by some as a quiet and calculated betrayal of that entire established order. And given her incredibly close and very public friendship with A'ja Wilson, who is the ultimate symbol of that veteran core, her choice to now join Caitlyn Clark's team felt like a significant and almost defiant statement. The prevailing and often toxic narrative at the time had suggested that no legitimate veteran in the league would actually want to play with Caitlyn Clark, a narrative that had been designed to frame the Indiana Fever as a completely and totally undesirable destination. And this entire manufactured setup had then created a very specific and a very unfair expectation for how Sydney Colson should behave upon her arrival in Indiana.
So like you being a stranger, I could care less about you talking about how many points I'll score in minutes. I don't care.
No, they'll see you and ask for a picture, you know? But you haven't shied away from it.
But Sydney Colson's very first actions as a member of the Indiana Fever were a direct and powerful confrontation of this entire false narrative head on, because instead of keeping her distance from Caitlyn Clark or just making some vague and non-committal comments to the media, she immediately embraced her brand new and much hyped teammate with a genuine and an almost infectious enthusiasm. And during her introductory press conference, she described the entire chaotic situation as being both nuts and special. She then went on to point to the very real and the very tangible economic impact that Caitlyn Clark had already brought to the city of Indianapolis, noting that people were now traveling from out of state and even from out of the country just to be able to come and see their games.
And I loved seeing you and Caitlyn Clark's relationship. You know, you guys are always cracking jokes on social media, on your live, and obviously she's a game-changing player for the league. So like, what has it been like? You know, getting to know her humor, and seeing firsthand all that's coming her way.
It was cool being on a team with her, getting to see her in another light. Was really cool.
And by so immediately and so publicly embracing not only Caitlyn Clark, but the entire long-term Indiana Fever project, Sydney Colson had just single-handedly and powerfully rejected the entire anti-Clark narrative, the very same one that the league's own old guard establishment had seemed to expect from her. In that one single press conference, she had just set a brand new tone of unity, a tone that would ultimately prove to be absolutely crucial for the team's entire on-court chemistry as they moved forward. And once Sydney Colson had officially arrived in the the city of Indiana, she had gained a front row seat to the entire and still unfolding Caitlyn Clark phenomenon. But her perspective on it all was completely and totally different from everyone else's, because her perspective had been shaped by years and years of professional in-the-trenches experience and by 2 hard-won championship rings. So while the rest of the public was just seeing a scoring machine and a media sensation, Sydney Colson was observing the immense, almost crushing pressure that was being placed upon the young woman who was underneath that blinding spotlight. And she saw Caitlyn Clark in a completely different light, as she was now noticing the significant and almost unbearable weight that she was being forced to carry, simply as a person who was entering this league with a level of unprecedented and often unfair attention.
Over the course of her career, I think, we haven't had many instances where we've seen, like, Caitlyn, Angel, Paige, like, players come in with the sort of notoriety that they had, the sort of money that they're making, the attention, everything. It's a lot for a young person to be dealing with, on top of pressure to do well as a basketball player, to lead your teams, all of that. So it was good to be able to see like a lighter side of her. I think
Sydney Colson has since described the entire surreal experience as being cool because it has allowed her to see a much lighter and a much more human side of Caitlyn Clark. She has acknowledged that the players like Caitlyn Clark, like Angel Reese, and like Paige Buchers all now arrive in the WNBA with a level of both notoriety and of financial resources that would be a lot for any young person to have to handle. And while the transition to the world of professional sports is already mentally and emotionally taxing for any young player, it becomes exponentially harder when you have these kinds of massive, almost impossible expectations that are being placed upon you before you have even had a chance to step onto the court. And that is where the veteran mentorship becomes absolutely critical for navigating this kind of a unique and an almost unprecedented level of pressure. And it is a role that Sydney Colson has now stepped into almost naturally.
Unfortunately, when she was injured, you're having to adjust your mindset. You're having to get mentally tougher because I think she had like a bad injury before. So now you're having to watch your team from the outside and still, I would be talking to her a lot about, make sure you're still being vocal. You don't want to lose this time with your teammates, and because you're injured or sidelined, you're not still using the opportunity to lead or to grow relationships. Don't let it be a wasted season just because you can't physically contribute.
And when Caitlyn Clark's own promising season was so suddenly and so tragically derailed by that injury, Sydney Colson's entire purpose on this team had to shift. It now became far less about her own on-court play and far more about her off-court leadership, because these kinds of serious injuries can so easily and so completely isolate a player from their team's entire daily rhythm. So the active and often unseen efforts from the other teammates to try and keep an injured player like her engaged are now a true and an undeniable hallmark of a strong and a healthy team culture. And Sydney Colson has since recognized that Caitlyn Clark, who had never really had to face any kind of significant long-term injuries before in her entire career, now had to completely and totally adapt her entire mindset and to try and build a brand new kind of a mental toughness right from the sidelines.
Her desire to become a better leader and, to come back, because there were times where maybe, she thought she was coming back and then it wasn't happening, or another little thing would happen that turned into a big thing. But to see her fun side, I think that was the most important part, to see her being jovial and lighthearted and having fun with her teammates. I don't think was like a side that people saw a lot last season. And so I would just be telling her more of that.
So what was the specific and the crucial guidance that Sydney Colson had offered to Caitlyn Clark during this incredibly challenging and unprecedented time for her? As it turns out, their private conversations had now frequently been centered on the topic of leadership, and Sydney Colson had repeatedly urged Caitlyn Clark to continue to use her voice, even when she could not use her own body to help the team on the court. She had emphasized the fact that Caitlyn Clark's own personal value to this team had extended far, far beyond her own physical play play on the court. And the ultimate goal of all of this was to ensure that all of this time that she was now being forced to spend away from the court was not going to be a completely wasted season for Caitlyn Clark's own personal development. And so Sydney Colson had then focused on helping her to strengthen all of her relationships with her other teammates and to continue her own personal growth as a leader of this team. And she had seen Caitlyn Clark's own clear and undeniable desire to become a better leader of this team, and she had then worked to help her to channel that. And this mentorship, which was now focused on all of the intangible aspects of the game of basketball, had now become a defining and a crucial element of the Indiana Fever's entire season. And it has now proven that true leadership is not always reflected in the numbers on the stat sheet, but in how you are able to support your own team, even when you cannot physically contribute to its success on the court.
We did something really special for us to have been together for just a matter of months and not fully healthy, everybody at the same time. So it was fun. It was really fun. And I think the Commissioner's Cup championship gave us like even more confidence that we could go on and win a championship. And I think we would have had we stayed healthy.
With their undisputed superstar, Caitlyn Clark, now sidelined by that season-ending injury, the Indiana Fever's entire promising season could have very easily and very quickly fallen apart. But instead of collapsing, it became the ultimate high-stakes test of the very culture that Sydney Colson and all of the other veterans on this team had been so specifically hired to build, because this team was now being forced to face a wave of adversity that was coming at them from multiple angles. There were the mounting and often heartbreaking losses, there was the constant and often unfair external scrutiny, and there was the ongoing, almost daily challenge of having to integrate the brand new players into their system, just because of all of the injuries that they had been forced to endure.
People pointed to your voice as one in the locker room that everyone listened to, that you were one of the main leaders for the team. You know, people trusted you. Taking on that role, what was it like trying to overcome some of the hurdles? And was there a hurdle this season that you guys like that rocked y'all, like almost was so tough to really stay together from?
And while the pressure on this team was absolutely immense, Sydney Colson's own personal approach to it all had provided a crucial and a much-needed counterbalance, because her unique brand of leadership was one that was firmly rooted in both humor and in authenticity. And she had actively and deliberately fostered a locker room environment where all of the players on this team felt completely and totally comfortable with just being themselves, as she was now using laughter as a practical and as a very effective tool to help her teammates to manage all of the stress of a very long and a very difficult season. And this kind of a singular focus on creating a sense of psychological safety and on forging some strong social bonds is now directly correlated with a better on-court team performance and with a greater sense of resilience, especially during the toughest of stretches, because when the players on a team all feel as if they are being supported by their own teammates, then they are far more likely to take some risks on the court and to push their way through all of the various challenges that they are being forced to face.
I mean, from the outside, I think everybody can see the different types of adversity that hit our team, and I don't know, we just found a way. We got a lot of personalities on our team, and there's a lot of joking around, so when hard times were hitting, we were just like making jokes, laughing, because honestly, some stuff was just, what can you do? What can you say about some stuff? You just gotta get closer together, and I think we did that. I think it showed in our play, and the environment was positive.
And the ultimate and perhaps most profound test of this brand new culture arrived in the form of a devastating, season-ending setback for Sydney Colson herself, a torn ACL. This single tragic moment could have, and perhaps should have, completely and utterly shattered the entire fragile morale of this young team, as they had now just lost one of their primary on-court leaders and one of their most important off-court culture setters. But the team's immediate and powerful response to this news proved that everything in Indiana had now in fact changed, because instead of fracturing under the weight of this new and seemingly insurmountable challenge, the team immediately and instinctively rallied around her with an unwavering and an almost fierce level of support, and with the exact same infectious spirit of humor that she herself had so brilliantly championed from the very first day of the season. And this incredible, almost paradoxical resilience, a resilience that had been born from a genuine human connection and from a shared and a deeply held commitment to one another, had now become the team's single most defining trademark. And it was a trademark that had then carried them through the rest of the entire grueling season, and that had then completely and totally solidified their brand new and hard-won identity as a group that simply would not break under the pressure. And in doing so, they had now set a powerful and an almost unbreakable foundation for their entire and very promising future.
We got played with injuries, but even though the injured players, like we still try to make it a point to be around for practices, to still be lending our voices, to give whatever advice and wisdom we could, even though like we weren't able-bodied, you know.
Yeah, it seemed like humor was therapy for you guys.
Yeah, in a way, it really did seem as if humor had now become the primary form of therapy for you guys. Because now, with this brand new platform that she had been given in Indiana, Sydney Colson's own personal value to the Indiana Fever had now extended far, far beyond the confines of the locker room or of any simple on-court stat sheet. Because her own unique personality and her own unique story had now become a genuine and an invaluable asset to the entire and now ascendant organization. Back in Las Vegas, she had been a key but perhaps an often overlooked piece on a roster that had been absolutely filled with a host of other established and often more heralded stars. But now, here in Indiana, she had now become a central and an indispensable figure in one of the entire league's most compelling and most watched narratives. And this fundamental and profound shift in her own personal position had now been translated into a series of real, tangible, off-court opportunities. Opportunities that had simply not been available to her before.
You are captivating. You are funny. The way people are consuming the WNBA is changing and evolving. So now, my girl, you got commercials with TJ Maxx, Ally, Deloitte, Kia, DirecTV. You're doing commercials with Diana Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, Paige Beckers. Like, how have you found your lane to crack open and break through the zeitgeist? And literally, like, it's not something funny. You are one of the faces of the league.
And this newfound and greatly increased visibility then led directly to a series of high-profile national commercials and to a host of brand new and very lucrative brand partnerships with some major national companies, like TJ Maxx and Ally. Because by so brilliantly and so strategically placing herself at the very heart of both the Indiana Fever's ongoing rebuild and of the entire all-encompassing Caitlyn Clark story, Sydney Colson's own personal profile had now received a significant and a very public boost, and all of the brands that were now looking to connect with the WNBA's own rapidly expanding audience had now all seen her as the perfect and as the most authentic ambassador for their own various products and services.
I'm me everywhere I go. I think authenticity is going to always get you where you need to be, even if it's not what you pictured. And a lot of mine just happens to be forward-facing, but a lot of that can be attributed to like our showrunner, our director for the Sid and TP show. Carly, they came up with the idea for TP and I to be the faces of the league.
And her brand new and much more prominent role on this team had now allowed her to showcase not only her incredibly high basketball IQ, but also her own unique and very magnetic personality, a combination that had then led directly to a whole host of more and more media appearances, and even to her very own and very popular show, which is called Unsupervised, and which she co-hosts with TP. And she has also now participated in a series of high-profile national commercials right alongside some of the league's most established and most decorated stars like Diana Taurasi and Brianna Stewart. And all of this off-court success has now served to underscore a much larger and a much more important point about what the Indiana Fever are now in the process of building.
Like, we love self-deprecating humor. We're totally okay with what our paths have looked like in the WNBA, because while I love basketball, it's not my everything. Like, I'm a multifaceted person, so if basketball hasn't gone the way that I thought it would go, like that's okay. Like I've still been in a very blessed position, and one that I'm very fortunate for. A lot of minutes are not. Like, it's been a real treat to be in the W for this long. I can't say that I expected this.
So how did this single move manage to unleash such a wave of significant opportunities? By strategically and brilliantly joining a team that was on a meteoric rise, a team with a massive and ever-expanding national profile, Sydney Colson had masterfully positioned herself at the absolute epicenter of the WNBA's entire current growth story. The Indiana Fever, completely supercharged by the arrival of Caitlyn Clark, had unleashed a full-scale economic and media tidal wave, an impact so profound that it benefited every single player on their roster, roster. And the major brands, they were absolutely desperate to be a part of that incredible momentum, and Sydney Colson's genuine, authentic, and often humorous presence made her the ideal and perfect partner for them. Her entire journey has now served as the definitive and irrefutable proof that making a bet on the Indiana Fever was, in its essence, a direct and incredibly smart bet on the entire future of the league.
So to see that really turn into us being the faces of the league, I hope that it's inspiring to people to just bet on yourself and like make yourself a brand, like be authentic, stay true to it, and like the people that are supposed to find you will find you.
Sydney Colson's decision was always, from the very beginning, about something far more profound than just basketball. It was a clear and a powerful statement, a statement about the entire future direction of this league, and about who gets to be the one who will shape that future. And the Indiana Fever, who are now being built around the steady veteran leadership of Sydney Colson and the sheer generational talent of Caitlyn Clark, are now in the process of creating a brand new and a much more sustainable blueprint for what success in this league can and should look like. Because this team now represents a sustainable and a very modern model, a model that so perfectly and so seamlessly blends the wisdom of its veterans with the raw, explosive talent of its young stars. And Sydney Colson herself has now even spoken about her own personal enjoyment of the relationship aspect of the game of basketball, and she has even hinted at the possibility of a potential future career in the world of coaching. And with a core that has now been so carefully and so thoughtfully built for the long term, the foundation for this team is now firmly and completely in place. And now the 2026 season truly cannot arrive soon enough for this team and for its ever-growing and ever-passionate fan base. So do you stand with Sid and with Caitlyn? If you do, then let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Be sure to like, to subscribe, and to turn on all of your notifications so that you will never miss out on any of our future content. Click on the video that is on your screen right now, and we will see you in the next one.